Hi, today I'm going to be doing a lab regarding plate tectonics. The materials that I need are scissors, colored pencils, modeling clay, transparent paper, and the world relief map. And I have my notes. So I gathered the modeling dough, transparency paper, and the digital camera. And I'm going to cut the paper in half. I'm going to cut the paper in half, and I'm going to overlap the two pieces of the transparency paper by 2 inches. So I want to say that's about 2 inches. And place on a smooth, flat surface. I'm going to remove the modeling clay. I'm going to place the ball of dough in the center of the transparency sheet and press flat until it's a 1/4 inch thick. And it says press the dough firmly, ensuring that it fully adheres to the transparency paper. So let's see. Okay. So there's an overlap, flattened dough. And now I'm going to place my hands on the edges of the transparency paper and slowly slide the sheets 2 inches apart to simulate a divergent plate boundary. So let's see. Let's try. Let's make sure it's on there really good. Okay, so it pulled apart. Okay. So since we pulled them apart, this was a divergent plate, and you can see the splitting in the front. The next exercise says to remove the modeling dough, realign the sheets, and then this time we're going to move the sheets towards each other like a convergent plate modeling. So let's get our modeling clay and let's put it back in. And we're gonna put them towards each other. And they kind of move one over the other. And a transform plate. These are when they slide away from each other in opposite directions. Let's see what happens here. So we're sliding it and it's stretching and it kind of tore like that. Okay. So now our findings from using the modeling clay and the transparent paper, it asked what type of convergent plate movement was simulated in the procedures. Ocean plate or continental plate, and a continental plate because it changed the way the land was. The second question, which type plate boundary produces new material. How does this process occur? Convergent plate boundary produces new material. Subduction doesn't happen when continental plates collide. Now we're moving on to the second part of the experiment. So they asked us to use the map to find different boundaries. First, to label the plates around the world, and then we had to find specific ones that they asked for, and then find one that was similar. For example, the first question was divergent boundary 1. Now this one's in the Atlantic Ocean where the North American plate pulls away from the Eurasian plate. So if you see here, here's the divergent plate between the North American plate and the Eurasian plate. Now the second divergent boundary that they asked for is between the Atlantic Ocean where the South American plate pulled away from the African plate. If you see here, this is the second divergent plate between the South American plate and the African plate. Now what these, you can see with both of these in this plate, is that they pulled away from each other and created this land, this ocean in between. Now the next one that they requested we look for is a convergent boundary. And this one is, the first one is between the Philippine plate and the Pacific plate, as you can see there. And that led to crustal deformation. And the second convergent boundary is between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. And you can see here that there's crustal deformation as well. The next one that we needed to find was a transform boundary. This is where the two plates split because they slid away from each other, kind of like the modeling. And this one's between the North American plate and the Pacific Coast plate. So this right here in this peninsula, you can see how they slid away from each other. And the second transform boundary is in the Scotia plate and South American plate right here. And those two plates slid away from each other as well. Now from these findings, it gave us an actual visual on the map of where the plates were, as well as what it did to the whole Earth. And you could see from these findings where we identified them. Now, the questions that it asked to describe characteristics of divergent plate boundaries that occur on land. The divergent plate boundaries create rifts because of streams and rivers. Therefore, this causes sea and ocean basins, like we've seen in the first two divergent boundaries. Question 2, what type of boundary occurs when between the African and Arabian tectonic plates? A divergent boundary because the rifts created sea and ocean basins. Number 3, describe the characteristics of convergent plate boundaries that occur between two continental plates. This is where folding and faulting happens between two continental plates. And the fourth question, use your digital relief map to locate evidence of the convergence between the ocean plate and continental plate. And we had to name two plates that create this boundary. And that would be the Pacific and Philippine plate and the Eurasian plate. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my lab.